Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us, Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase pricing and availability questions concerning this watch. In 2019, Audemars Piguet launched the Code 1159 collection, a dress watch line to replace the discontinued Jules Audemars series. The watches tended to be larger and, in terms of style and engineering, quite distinct from their predecessors. One of the challenges of the first year's Code 1159 was that the dials seemed to lack features and details and nuance. And while that wasn't true for the complications, it was true for the automatic and the chronograph. So the next year in 2020, Audemars Piguet came back with far more elaborate takes on the self-winding automatic and the chronograph. And that's exactly what we have right here. Code 1159 self-winding in a combination of white gold and rose gold. This example in my hand was sold in March of 2022. And though it's not obvious to the eye, this is a combination of metallization, textured finishing, and lacquer on the dial. This was one of 5 lacquered dials that came out in the series for 2020. In terms of size, it's probably not as bulky as you imagine. At 41 millimeters, it's broad, and lug-to-lug, it is 49.8, so it has a large wingspan, so to speak, but it's only 10.9 millimeters thick, and because of the rather sheer side, I think people imagine it's a thicker watch than it is. That's simply not the case. It's broad and it's flat. We'll throw it on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, and you can see it will easily slide underneath the cuff. No issues there, but it is also broad across the wrist to the point where I really hesitate to recommend the 1159 to a wrist much smaller than mine. I would say maybe 15 centimeters if your wrist is flat across the top, otherwise 16 and up to really get the most of this watch. There's your over the top, then here's the definitive angle, the down the barrel, that really shows you where the lugs sit in relation to the edge of my wrist. The strap is a lovely piece, and taking a quick look here, you can see that it's bolstered a little bit. We have a combination of textile to match the dial and the white gold, a folded edge on the bottom. You can really feel that it is an insert that is slick and seamless, and this is a completely brand new Audemars Piguet factory strap with no crimping and no gouging. What's fascinating here is that the model has its own pin buckle, and you can see that not only is it fairly nuanced, featuring a combination of a polish and satin and then media blast on the bottom, but if you look in profile, you can see that the screws used to hold it to the strap, they're actually hexagonal in shape, as are the screws used to hold the strap to the case, and that's a nod to the Royal Oak model, which has those hexagonal bolts in its bezel. And if you look at the mid case here, this is where the watch really gains a lot of credibility in terms of nuance and art direction. That mid case is a rounded octagon, just like the Royal Oak. We have these open, airy, buttress-like lugs that get missed when people just look at these soldier shots of the watch online. It's more nuanced than that, and the nuance even continues. As you can see, it's externally beveled, but it's also internally beveled, which is an unusual and rich look. Again, nuance. Take a quick look at these lugs. They're not physically contacting the case back. They are separate from the case back. The junction with the watch is through the bezel, so a lot of little tricks to catch the eye and hold the attention and capture the imagination of its owner. We have a combination of satin and polish. You can see that the caseback and the bezel, they both have polished beveling on them, and that the bezel has a little bit of a curvature. You can see how it dips at 6 o'clock and 12 o'clock, and we have this sort of dihedral-like profile to the crystal, which is unconventionally cambered to create interesting refraction patterns. The bezel is also quite minimalist. Looking at the watch from head on, you can barely even see the bezel. It's like a little silver halo, and that is that. Now we have an AP logo on the crown, which is otherwise polished and satinated. And then we have this box section to the sapphire. Taking another look, you can see underneath the sapphire, the first tier of the dial is a rehaut that features individual seconds and minutes. If you want to read every 5 seconds or 5 minutes, we have quarter Arabic numerals, which are all rose gold, along with the hands, the logo, and the indices. The idea there being they're 18-karat gold. They will not tarnish or oxidize. Another change made for the 2020 version of the Code 1159 was that the fonts, particularly numerals on the dial, were conformed so that they all matched. So you can see that the 3 on the rehaut is the same as the one on the date wheel, is the same as the one on the dial. So that's kind of an important thing, and something that they didn't remember to do in 2019. That makes the 2019s a little bit collectible, but aesthetically, this is a better match. Also, taking a look at this dial, it really deserves to be acknowledged for what it does best, which is that it hides the lacquer to the point you don't even know it's there, but the glossiness, the reflectivity here is energized by the presence of clear lacquer over a metallic sunburst base, and that's a really cool combination. It looks like a bare, shiny metal, but it has that little bit of extra shimmer that comes from a gloss clear lacquer atop. We have a counterweighted Lancet-style seconds hand. The watch does have a stop seconds function. It also has a quick set date, so you can rapidly set the date should the watch run down or encounter an irregular length month. Easy to do. And then take a look at the hands. They're nicely rounded and vaulted across their top, so not a standard baton hand. They're not particularly flat. They're actually voluminous. All right, on the case back, the movement is the 4302, a new family of automatic calibers created for the 2019 launch of the Code 1159. It's bigger than the old 3120. That was about 26 millimeters. This is 32, so it's bigger and it better fills the display case back. You can also see it's got a full balance bridge and a free-sprung Gyromax style balance for durability, but now the balance beats at 4 Hz, a higher beat rate than the 3 Hz of the prior automatic, meaning this holds up even better under conditions of shock, and whereas the previous auto was 60 hours, this is 70. We have a hybrid ceramic bearing for the winding system, and you can see the rose gold rotor extensively hand finished, including interior bevels, which is difficult to do on the exterior of bridges or components. To do in the tight confines of a skeletonized rotor, to get those 8 separate interior angles where sharp creases are created by the junction of bevels, that's really impressive. The rotor is by far the most elaborately finished part of the whole movement, and you have the coats of arms of the Audemars and Piguet families to remind you that AP, since 1875, the oldest continuously family-owned and run watchmaker in Switzerland. And this year, 2025, is a big year for them. They're 150 years old. You can see that the finishing is a judicious blend of hand finish and mechanical finish. It's price appropriate, very attractive, and it's a long-time practice of Audemars Piguet to combine these different elements. Now, taking a quick look at the movement, you can see 32 joules and broad, and a really good-looking movement. The ceramic bearings reducing maintenance requirements and also increasing winding efficiency. If you love this watch, reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com. And I do get some questions from people asking, what does Code 1159 mean? Okay, bear with me here, because this is all contrived. Challenge, own, dare, evolve. That's the code part. 1159, according to Audemars Piguet, is just before the dawn of a new day. And well, I suppose that's true if you're talking about midnight. It could be just before lunch if we're talking about midday, but I don't think they considered that. In any case, Code 1159 self-winding, finally looking as expensive as it is, thanks to these lovely new lacquered dials. Reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details, and for water resistance, 30 meters, so dress watch standard only.